Okay, it's recording. I'm Jenna Liu, speaking for the continuance of the use of class rankings. Because class rankings motivate students by encouraging them to take more challenging classes and get higher grades. Also, it provides colleges with more information when deciding who to admit. So class ranking is a mathematical summary of a student's academic record compared with those of others. And GPA is short for grade point average, which is a mathematical calculation indicating where average of grades fall on the scale. And AP stands for Advanced Placement, which are college classes available for high school students. So class rankings should continue to be used because they motivate students and give more information to colleges. AP and honor classes are weighed differently than regular classes. They are weighed on a 5.0 scale, so if a student wants a higher class ranking, then they are encouraged to take more challenging classes, hence AP and honor classes, so they can be weighed on a 5.0 scale. Also, higher grades rank higher on the point scale than do lower grades. So students are more motivated to get higher grades so they can have a higher GPA, which in turn means a higher class ranking. Also, it encourages healthy competition among students. However, if a competition is too much, then counselors can withhold class ranking if necessary and only provide them for information regarding scholarship or college admission. And it gives the students an idea of how they're doing in school compared to their peers. And in the college admission process, many large state universities still require class rankings. And studies have shown that class rankings are better indicators of a person's aptitude than those of standardized testing like the SATs. And a lack of class ranking for college admission means on a worse choice than with. Like the University of Oregon, if it doesn't receive a class ranking, then they just make the decision without class ranking. However, the decision is usually far worse than with class ranking. And it forces officials to give more weights to standardized testings, which are only a one-time test as compared to class ranking, which is cumulative throughout. Oh, that's her phone, never mind. Which gives them more weight to standardized testing. Just a one-time thing as compared to class ranking, which is cumulative throughout high school. And an isolated GPA doesn't mean anything to officials because they don't have a comparison to compare it to. And like Jim Miller, the admission officer at Brown University, said, if a kid has a B+, what does it mean? If a school doesn't give any A's, it could be really good. You've got to position the kids in some relative environment. And also it means a longer process for admissions because they have to create scattergrams that compare the grades of all incoming freshmen. And low class ranking can be negated with the weighing of extracurricular activities and standardized testings, like John Cox's, who took unweighed Chinese and Latin and journalism during high school, and he was still able to be admitted into Harvard. And also large universities and like Vanderbilt, Brown, and Swarthmore prefer the use of GPA. So in conclusion, class rankings helps students by giving them a summary and comparison of their progress in high school and helping them find a suitable school in college.
Okay. Would class ranking encourage students to enroll in classes of interest?
Am I supposed to answer just with yes or no?
I guess, yeah.
Yes.
How so?
Yes.
Okay, would class ranking be accurate when high schools nationwide use different curriculums?
Yes. No. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it mandatory for all colleges to have students class rank?
No.
Okay. Can students be bullied by what their class rank is, either high or low?
Maybe.
Would class ranking be accurate when some high schools use weighted grades and others don't, especially on a nationwide basis, like when you're applying for colleges?
Maybe.
Would class rank be an accurate representation of a person's academic capabilities, even though it does not show extracurricular activities and stuff like that?
Maybe.
Okay. So, my name is Rawal Hamdani, and I'm speaking on behalf of the negative. I do not believe that high schools should use class rank. I thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. Student ranking in schools harmful to the student's future, selection of classes, and health. Student rankings are not even mandatory for college admissions or by law. Removing these will increase the student's improve the student's education and the school. Some key terms. Class rank is a mathematical summary of a student's academic record compared to the other students in the class. A grade point average, or GPA, is the total number of grade points earned divided by the total number of credits attempted. Ivy League colleges are a group of 8 universities in the eastern United States that are high in academic and social prestige. Electives are a course of study that are not compulsory, that tend to include arts, like music and stuff like that. SAT is a standardized test used to evaluate suitability for college admissions. ACT is also a standardized test used to evaluate suitability for college admissions. Advanced placement classes are 8 college-level classes that are given to high schoolers. If they pass the test at the end of the year, they're given a college credit. In schools that use class ranking, students experience extreme stress, unhealthy competition, and unfair advantages concerning applications for college. This creates a negative environment for the student to mature academically and mentally. Using class ranks creates an unhealthy amount of stress and competition in school environments. Students are already worried about getting high test scores and grades in classes. They don't need to be worried about what their rank is. Students are labeled by the ranks. Okay, the students in the top range of numbers can be labeled a nerd or geeks or stuff, and the students in the lower range will just be labeled dumb or unintelligent. So that would discourage people of trying to do good. Like the good students wouldn't want to be labeled, so they'll do worse, grade drop, and stuff like that. Exceptional students not in the top 10 percentiles of their school are overlooked by reputable colleges like the Ivy League colleges. When the colleges are trying to weed out the people they want, they only focus on certain percentages, like the top 10 or usually just the top 10. And students at high-performing schools would be at a disadvantage because of this. A student not in the 10th percentile of a high-performing school might surpass a student in the 10th percentile of a school that is lower academically. But for the colleges that only look at percentiles by rank, the student at the high-performing school wouldn't cut it. The difference between somebody on the bottom edge of one percentile and the top edge of another is very close. Like it could be 1,000th of a point. If somebody's on the bottom edge of the 10th percentile and somebody else is at the top edge of the 11th percentile, well, that could be a difference of 100th or 1,000th of a point. The class rankings do not reflect the amount of extracurricular activities that occupy a person's time. Colleges expect people to be well-rounded. They expect them to be able to juggle time, manage time academically and extracurricular activities. But class rank does not show any of that, not any of the aspects that a college looks for in a student. And if a student is able to get in a very high percentile, also including the amount of extracurricular activities they have, that's impressive. And they might be more academically better than somebody else. In private schools with a small number of students, ranking can be a problem, especially for college applications. In private schools, there's a small number of students, let's say 100 are graduating. Well, if a college is only looking at 10%, then only 10 students will be looked at out of that school. It wouldn't be fair for the whole other half of the school that's extremely great, high-performing, private. They wouldn't be looked at. When students apply to top competitive schools, there's also a problem because the percentages tend to be lower. I mean, when you're going to Ivy League colleges, they're going to be in the 10th percentile. They're not going to be in the 25th and stuff like that. Taking off the ranking system would force colleges to look closely at the individual student instead of just a number. The colleges would use student GPA, student ACT, SAT scores, the range and medians of student scores in those schools, the SATs and the ACTs, curricular and extracurricular activities the student was involved in, results of AP exams, grade distribution of classes. They can create scattergrams, they can create bar graphs, pie charts, whatever they need to see where that student lies in comparison to the rest of the class. They can use student portfolios with writing samples and essays. There's personal recommendations from teachers and faculty members, and any other way of getting to see the student's potential. High schools support the taking of electives, but students avoid taking electives because those don't really higher their GPA that much. If a student has an interest in music or art, they can't take that because it would only lower their class rank, and they have to get in a good college, but they can't take what they want to do that will increase their education in whatever career field or whatever interests they have. Students avoid challenging themselves because they're afraid of a lower grade in a demanding class. They don't want to take a challenging class. They'll take the easy class that gets them a higher GPA than the more challenging class that would get them a better education. To conclude, if schools nationwide would remove the use of class rank, the students in the educational establishment would improve spectacularly. Students could escape from labeling, focus on subjects of interest, enroll in classes that show healthy competition, and remove extreme stress. And most importantly, the student be able to reach their full academic and even athletic potential if they want to go into something athletic. Thank you. Now I stand for questioning.
Isn't the point value different for regular AP classes?
Yes.
And don't you believe that hardworking students should be rewarded?
Yes.
And don't colleges consider other criteria such as extracurricular activities and community service in addition to class ranking?
Yeah, but if they're focused on percentiles, then they're not going to see all the other kids who got a lower class ranking.
But they still look at all the aspects of the students, not just if you're in the top 10%, then you're automatically in.
Well, the people that aren't in the top, like let's say somebody's not in the top 10%, then they're not even going to get looked at. Like let's say if a college only looks at the 10th percentile, then the people, let's say in the 11th percentile, wouldn't get looked at all. And even though the people in the 10th percentile, they might get to see, like, the colleges would check their extracurricular activities and stuff like that. The people in the lower percentile wouldn't have a chance of running.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. I only have 3.
Okay.
So okay. So class ranking should be continued, but the method of using it can be different. For example, for schools that have very, very stiff competition, then the counselors can withhold class ranking so as to not to differentiate between, increase tension between people in school more. Also, when schools look at each applicant, they focus on every aspect of that person, not just only academics or only extracurricular activity or only community service. And for the academic aspect, class ranking should be part of the overall impression of it, and that include with standardized testing. So class ranking focuses on the cumulative performance of the student throughout their high school years, while standardized testing is just a one-time how well you adjust to testing environment thing. So I think both aspects should be looked at, but more weight should be given to class ranking because it's cumulative. Also, class ranking encourages students to take harder classes and achieve higher grades because they want higher class ranking. Also, students shouldn't be discouraged from taking classes of their interest. Like my example of John Toxic, he took unweighed Chinese, Latin, and journalism during high school, and because of his standardized testing scores, community service, and letters of recommendation, he was able to be admitted into Harvard. So that shows that a good student will be admitted to the college of their choice, regardless of, crap, I just disproved my point. Okay, anyways, yeah.
Okay, so problems with class ranking is that certain, if you're going to highly competitive college, only certain percentiles would be looked at, and student rank is not an accurate representation of the student as an academic whole. To be a complete representation, it would have to include all those extracurricular activities that would have. It would have to include community service. It would have to include a lot of stuff that takes up the student's time and prevents them from being a thousandth of a point from the 10th percentile. Not all high schools weight classes, so students would be at a disadvantage when applying to a college like nationwide. When some of the nation uses weight classes and the other half doesn't, well, that's a problem. It's not a real representation for everybody. If everybody followed the same standards, maybe that would be better. Class ranking would increase people's motivation, but it would increase a great amount of stress and unhealthy competition. I mean, the only person that's happy would be the person that was in a certain percentile that they want for their colleges. Just because a college doesn't use class ranking, it doesn't mean that choosing a student wouldn't be a good decision. I mean, just because just because a college does not use class rankings when choosing students, it doesn't mean that they made a bad decision. They could use ACT scores, they can use SAT scores, they can use recommendations, they can use portfolios, they can use so many other things that describe a student academically and their own like social aspects, like friendly, nice, good person, and that would increase their chances of getting in. Comparisons between students can be found in comparing the student's GPA to the average GPA of the school or nationwide. If they want to do it for incoming freshmen, it doesn't necessarily have to be based on exact class rank. Taking advanced placement classes does not exactly mean that they will get good grades. Sometimes the students take a class that's too hard for them just to try to get their class rank up, and sometimes they are too afraid of taking a high level class because they're afraid of getting the class rank down. So yeah, that's a problem.
Okay. Class ranking should be. It's used to give schools a idea of how the student does in a school, not just an isolated GPA. Because if a school has all hard classes and where the most you can get is probably a B, then a student with a B, just a B, like an isolated GPA, would look unfavorable to college admissions. However, if that person is ranked maybe 5th and has a GPA equivalent of a B, then that could be a really good thing and make them look favorable to college admissions. Also, because people want to get in a certain percentile, it encourages them to get higher grades, to study harder, and to take harder classes so they can get into that percentile and be happy. And if the students cannot learn how to control and provide a healthy competition, then the counselors have the option of withholding class ranking until the end of their high school journey when they apply to college. So thank you for considering the use of class ranking, and have a good day.